Hi, everyone. This is a very, very important session. So, is the Iran war coming to an end? Has Trump folded? What's happening? So, today we will discuss a lot of different things about what is happening in Iran and how it could turn out. And there's a lot more than what meets the eye. So, on the surface, there are some things happening, but there are a lot of geopolitical and military strategies behind what we see in the headline. So, let's start with Trump. 2 days ago, Trump said, I give Iran 48 hours. And if they don't surrender, they don't free up the Strait of Hormuz, I'm going to bomb all the power plants in Iran. And then they will have no electricity. So now, very close to the deadline, Trump did sort of a taco. Taco stands for Trump always chickens out. So now he says, oh, we've been talking to the Iranians for the last 2 days, and I'm going to give them 5 more days to make a deal with us. Okay. So his deadlines seem to have extended for 5 days. And then at the same time, Netanyahu made a brief announcement, videotaped, and he said that Israel is going to halt the large scale attacks on Israel, I mean, on Iran. Okay, large scale. So that means there could be some small scale and medium scale. Now, these are the narratives from the two countries who have been doing all the attacking, the US and Israel. So, what is the message from Iran? They said, we don't know what Trump is talking about. Nobody is talking to the US. We're not going to surrender. And if the war has to end, we want $100 billion in reparations, and we want the US to lift all the sanctions, and we want promise guaranteed from the US and Israel that they will never attack Iran again. Okay. So the Iranian regime always talks tough. So, what is the reality? And then the US media even has a name for who allegedly the US is working with, and that is the Speaker of the Parliament. And interestingly, that guy or the account that claims to represent him, they come on the US social media like Twitter X, and they said, no, we're not talking to Trump. Nobody is talking to Trump. So there's chaos all over, okay? And then there are reports that Pakistan is actually helping the talks, the background talks between the US and Iran. So there's a lot of confusion. Let's try to make sense out of all of that. Okay. So the big picture is that the U.S. and Israel have dropped something like 25,000 bombs on Iran. Okay. They've destroyed all the government buildings. They've destroyed or damaged all the military bases. They have destroyed 70 to 80% of the missile launchers. They've destroyed the Iranian Navy completely, and they have damaged the Air Force of Iran, which was never any good because all the planes are like from the 1960s. And the US and Israel have total dominance over the airspace in Iran, in many cities and ports. The US planes are flying at a very low altitude. You could see that on social media. And they're just bombing nonstop, right? And so even though Trump said, we'll give 5 more days before we attack the Iranian infrastructure. If you look at what happened on Saturday and Sunday, the US was bombing many, many places, Tehran and other cities. So basically, there's not a whole lot of military assets left in Iran. Okay. And we know that they've lost all their leadership, the top leadership, and Khamenei was killed on the first day. His son is either dead or in coma. So the only thing that's going on for Iran or the offensive skills or the potential. Okay, so number one, they have pretty much closed the Strait of Hormuz, through which like 20% of the global oil and 20% of the global natural gas go through. So that is terrible for the global economy. So when Trump said we are working on a deal, then the price of oil fell immediately to below $100. And that's something that Trump wants to do because he's getting a lot of pressure from countries around the world, and the gas price in the US are going up. So, one of the first things he may want to do is a temporary relief that would let all the ships, there are about 350 ships that are stuck in the Persian Gulf, so they cannot get out. Therefore, I think that the first thing that Trump may want to do is to let those 340 ships, 350 ships leave the Persian Gulf, and that would really bring down the oil price. And then he can start the war again in 5 days. Okay. Uh, but I don't think that the Iranian regime will accept that because well, if I can see through the trick, I'm sure that the IRGC can see through this trick. And the reason I'm saying that there's not Trump is not fully backing off is that one, there are these the assault ships, USS Tripoli and USS New Orleans. They are coming all the way from Japan to the Middle East, and they will be in the region by this Friday, so in 3 days. So these ships are prepared and trained to do a ground invasion. Okay, so they have all these the amphibious vessels. To think of the D-Day Normandy in 1944. So similar to that, but on a smaller scale. So they will try to land on all the ports around the Strait of Hormuz, like Bandar Abbas and ports like that. And then they'll try to secure the Strait of Hormuz. And also paratroopers, the 82nd, the Airborne, it's the famous, the elite U.S. troops that are trained for paratroopers landing from parachutes. So this is also very similar to the D-Day, during World War II, how they landed in the Normandy beaches in France. So there are about 3,000 of the 82nd Airborne have already landed in the Middle East, and then about 5,000 Marines are on their way, and they'll be in the Gulf of Oman, Persian Gulf, by Friday. Okay, so these are not just bluffing. This is serious. So my guess is the paratroopers will land in the Karg Island, which is the small island on the southwestern part of Iran. I mean, it's only 20 square kilometer, and the U.S. has already bombed all the military positions in that island, and now all there is left is pretty much the oil workers and lots of tanks. And 90% of the Iranian the oil exports come out of this small island. So it's very, very likely you can pretty much bet, unless there is a deal achieved, before that, the U.S. will capture the Karg Island. Okay, and it's also very close to Kuwait and Saudi Arabia. So it's very likely that there will be fast ships and helicopters fly into Karg Island, and then. So I don't know if the paratroopers can land in such a small area, but if they can, they will do that, or if not, through helicopters and boats, they will take over the island. And then you have the Marines, the expeditionary Marines, who will come to secure the Strait of Hormuz. Okay? Now, these things are not going to be easy. They're going to be very tough. And also, if, for example, say the US takes over the Karg Island, one thing that the Iranians might do, we don't know, they kind of act like terrorists. So they might just bomb the island, right? They may send the ballistic missiles and drones to attack all the oil tanks in the island and just to set the whole island ablaze. Okay. So that depends on if they think they can recapture the island or if it's lost forever. If they think they can recapture the island, then obviously they're not going to destroy their own assets. But if they think that they are losing the war, they have lost it all, then it's going to be sort of like suicide bomber, right? But I'm going to blow up myself and I'm going to kill a lot of others. So there is this sort of a terrorist aspect to this whole Iranian regime because they could have just resigned, right? So they have absolutely no way of winning this war in a traditional sense, right? They have pretty much run out of missiles. The missile count is down like 96%, you know, and whatever missiles they fire, 90% get knocked down, right? So they send, say, 10 missiles at Tel Aviv and other cities in Israel, and then Israel knocks them out. Like 90%, 92%, they get knocked out. So the only way they are now able to inflict some damage on Israel is by sending these the cluster ammunitions, right? So these are missiles that travel all the way to the top of Israel, ahead Israel, and then they break up into 20, 25 smaller bombs. Okay, so these bombs may be like say 50 pounds, 100 pounds heavy. So, and then you have like 25 bombs or bomblets falling at the same time, and these are impossible to intercept. So they do fall on Israel, on civilian places, but they have no strategic military value. They're not destroying the Israeli military. They're not destroying the Israeli fighter jets. They're not destroying the Israeli missiles, whatever, right? They just damage a few homes. They damage the roads. So this is a very stupid way to fight. It has absolutely no effect on the capability of Israel or the US to strike. And similarly, they are sending, like yesterday, they sent four ballistic missiles against the UAE. On day one, uh, Iran sent 332 ballistic missiles against the UAE, okay, which has not fired a single bullet against Iran. But the Iranians keep firing missiles and drones against the UAE, which pretty much shoots down almost 100%, like 95 to 100% of the Iranian missiles and the drones get shot down by the UAE. So it's once again just a waste of money, and the UAE and Saudi Arabia are now willing to join the war against Iran. Okay, Saudi Arabia has pretty much said, Saudi Prince Salman, as the Wall Street Journal reported today, Prince Salman is now ready to start the war to join the US and Israel against Iran. And the UAE is shutting down all the bank accounts of the Iranians. Okay. So the UAE was the gateway, it was the kind of a loophole to US sanctions. So all these corrupt, the IRGC people have stored billions of dollars in the UAE banks. And now the UAE is starting to freeze all those bank accounts, which is going to be a huge loss for the IRGC. Uh, like even say, for example, if the U.S. and Israel say, let's make a deal, and we will stop the war, for at least a couple of months, what will happen to Iran? Their economy is shot, right? The real is now like 1.7 million reals to a dollar. And then they lose all these access to their money in the UAE banks. And if the US does not lift the sanctions, then Iran will be screwed. Okay. And then the US and Israel will just build up their interceptors and plan better, and they will start the attack. And maybe they will overtake the Karg Island or just bomb the Karg Island. And so it's pretty bad news for Iran as to where they go from here. Now, they could, the best case scenario, they make a deal where the US does not capture Karg Island, and they lift the sanctions, and they unfreeze all the UAE bank accounts, and then Iran can survive. But that would be terrible for Trump and the US. Okay. So for Trump, after having spent so many billions of dollars, after having talked so tough about unconditional surrender, regime change, blah, 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 it will be a terrible political loss. Okay. And he's going to lose his face. And more importantly, for the US, it will become a laughing stock. Okay? So this is the big bad US empire. It could not even defeat Iran. So how is it going to plan a fight against China? If China invades Taiwan, what can the US do? It has already spent all its weapons and interceptors and everything in Iran, and it has lost the war. It couldn't even defeat Iran. It'll just become a laughing stock, and there will be a lot of other countries that are going to then quickly move towards China, Russia, maybe North Korea will become more, brave and brazen. So this is terrible, right? This is like a jungle. If one monkey or a lion or a male elephant loses the fight, it's over. It gets kicked out of the herd, and none of the females want to mate with this new male. It's a death sentence. So the US and Trump cannot afford to lose this war. Now, if there is a deal, what Trump could accept is something like Venezuela, okay, where the U.S. controls the Iranian oil, and the new leader of Iran is has basically agreed to be a puppet of the U.S., like in Venezuela, Delcy Rodriguez, right? Then the Americans fly into Iran, like they fly into Venezuela, and then the Iranian leaders are smiling and kissing up to the US. Okay, so that is the only sort of deal that the US and Israel can accept. But that would be totally unacceptable for the Iranian regime, which has been shouting death to America since 1979. And they all talk every day about how they are anti Zionism. They're going to kick American military bases out of the Middle East. They're going to free Palestine. Uh, if you listen to the way they talk, it's so delusional or so courageous, uh, according to all the supporters on social media. By the way, just the support for Iran on social media, and especially from these white Americans who are leftists, socialists, communists, is just incredible. Okay, they're all rooting for the downfall of the U.S. And then you add all the Chinese and the Russians and the Muslims. It's like 75-80% of the content on social media are pro-Iranian regime, right? And I mean, and is even from the women, like the feminists, the Western leftist feminists, like Code Pink and Caitlin Johnstone and all these women, leftist liberals, who should be appalled by the way that women are treated in the Iranian regime since 1979. For example, if women dress a skirt, if they don't wear a hijab, if they don't even wear a hijab properly, if they wear makeup, if they wear perfume, if they have their nails done, they have the morality police that could come and beat up the women or even arrest them, take them to prison where the women could get raped, killed. Uh, Women could get hanged for sex outside marriage or sex before marriage. Women cannot even sing in public. Okay, one woman who dared to sing on her the YouTube channel, she got arrested. Okay, and women cannot even dance. There are like videos where a small girl, a 6, 7 year old girl, she dances, and then the morality police come and stop her. Okay, so, and then there are like numerous ways women are second class, third class citizens in Iran in family, marriage, inheritance, child custody, divorce. There are so many ways where women are treated horribly in Iran. But then you look at all these Western liberals and leftists, they are so in love with Iran. It's unbelievable. So, anyways, if Iran says okay to a Venezuela like deal, it will lose its face. Okay? It'll immediately become a laughing stock among all these liberals, socialists, communists, and all the pro Iran. and they will lose support immediately everywhere. Okay, and within Iran, there are a lot of hardliners who are going to be opposed to that. So, like even if there's a moderate who's able to remove the hardliners and they agree to a deal, I don't know. It's just seems impossible because they have trapped themselves with all this tough talk, and it's going to be next to impossible to agree to a Venezuela-like deal. So this is the bottom line. Neither party can lose, right? Uh, for Iran, they could definitely not surrender. And for the US, it can definitely not win. Okay. And then there's also another side to why the Iranian government cannot lose. It's because they have killed so many Iranians that all these people are going to want vengeance, right? The Iranian government has killed something like 30 to 50,000 Iranians in January. So they've been very, very ruthless. They have suppressed all these protests with brutal violence, with just shooting people with machine guns. Okay, it's just horrible way. And then you also have all these nepotism and financial corruption, as we talked about the IRGC people with billions of dollars in many other countries. And if those secrets come out, it'll be terrible. And last but not the least, there are a lot of people who want to be secular in Iran. Okay, so there are like all these videos where the Iranians come out and say, "I'm Persian, I'm not Muslim." And some estimates say that only 32% of the Iranians are Shiite Muslims, and 45% don't follow Islam. Okay, so they consider themselves as spiritual or agnostic or atheistic. Uh, so if those people get rights, then it'll be even more shocking because this whole the Islamic Republic of Iran becomes meaningless when such facts come out that, you know, 45% of the people are not Muslims. Uh, 90% of the Iranians do not support the concept of supreme leader. So there are all these really embarrassing facts that have been hidden only because there's no freedom of speech, there's no freedom of information, there's no freedom of media, there's no freedom to protest, there's no freedom to start your own political party, independent political party that's not subservient to the supreme leader, right? So it's a very tyrannical system that has been living through a facade, and all that facade is going to go away, and all their rhetoric, their revolutionary rhetoric for 47 years, are going to come crashing down. Okay, so there's no simple way, right? They both are stuck. The Iranian regime is stuck. The US is stuck. So, 5 more days, 1 more week, we will, my guess is that we're going to see a ground invasion this weekend or 1 week from today. Okay. So let's see if my prediction holds true. Thanks. Bye.